reading is kind of hard. They might say, Bricky, you learned how to read in school. I did, but time is a lot of it, but also not much of it. There's many, but also small, big, and also tiny. And because of tiny time, not big time, do I have the time to sit down with a book and take that much time out of my day to just look at the blank pages? Well, when it's a codex in Warhammer sometimes, but besides that, no. That's why you need my sponsor, Audible. If you haven't heard of Audible, you must be a resident of Rock Bottom and you talking speech, because if you have heard of Audible, you know that they are easily the best audiobook site basically in the world. Audible is still easily the industry leader in audiobooks, the industry leader in the voice acting for them, and the swiftness at which they are not only published, but then translated over to audiobooks right after. It's also the best because you can use and listen to it anywhere you need. Often I always listen to my audiobooks whenever I'm driving. I drive a decent amount, so therefore I can get through them at a decent pace. Sometimes I'm just doing something really monotonous that doesn't necessarily have my focus, so an audiobook in the background, perfect. Some personal recommendations if you are a Warhammer fan like I am. The one we are currently reading for Depths Ridiculous is Krieg by Steve Lyons. That tells the story of Krieg, when Krieg became Krieg, and all the crazy stuff that happened with it. If you want something a little bit weirder, a little bit different, you've got Roadside Picnic, fantastic novel that was used as the basis for the Stalker game that we all know. And if you want something just really harsh, hardcore, depressing, and really wanting to challenge you, The Long Walk by Stephen King, arguably my favorite Stephen King book he's ever done, and not a very popular one, so would recommend. That being said, go ahead and check out audible.com/Bricky in the description, or text Bricky to 500 to get started on your audiobook journey immediately. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Audible and Destiny. Hello everybody, my name is Bricky, currently having slurs thrown at me for not pushing the Wellspring payload. Destiny. I love Destiny, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. Have you had a rough ride, Bungie? Oh, yes, you have. I played Destiny 1's beta because I was hot off the Halo train, really excited to see what Bungie comes out with, and I was met with mediocrity. Beta was fun, but mediocrity in spades. There were ideas, concepts, themes, all things that showed lots of promise and potential, but for a while, that's all it was promise and potential, and none of it was properly acted on. Destiny 1 became the game with a niche audience you occasionally heard spatterings about, and that's kind of what it stayed for a while. With a few DLCs, things improved slightly. Crota's End was not particularly great, but it was a DLC. House of Wolves was also kind of like a side mission, but then the Taken King showed up and basically saved Destiny 1 from ruin. Hope sprang from this. Things changed, the story got better, and there's a little gleaming light shining through. Then Wrath of the Machine came out after that, kind of kept the ball rolling, not as good, but it kept the ball rolling. And then right there, that was the end of Destiny 1. Destiny 2 on the horizon, huge improvements to be made, 60 FPS on PC, lots of options coming out here. Destiny 2, the new world, and it launched with the Red War, Gaul, the Cabal, and it was mediocre at best. Not as bad as Destiny 1, I wouldn't say. There were still lots of improvements made, but it had no real intrigue. Curse of Osiris came out and it was quite bad. Warmind came out and it was okay, and then just like in Destiny 1, 2 okay, mediocre expansions, and then bang, the big one. Forsaken. Uldren Sov, brother of Mara Sov, queen of the Reef, going out to an attempt to revive her, gathering all these Scorn barons, new area, new enemy faction to fight. Not only that, but Cade 6, rest in peace. There was stakes, there was intrigue, there was excitement, and just like with Taken King, Forsaken saved Destiny 2. Shadowkeep afterwards was a disappointment, but that's mainly because they were leaving Activision. It feels genuinely unfinished. And then Beyond Light came out, and you know, it was pretty good, not quite Forsaken level. Some people loved it, the overarching lore people, the EXO fans, oh, they adored it. And anyone who thinks that Elsie Bray is thick as fuck or something, I don't know. But looming on the horizon, you had not only the new seasonal model a bunch has been created, a new seasonal bits of content every single quarter of the year to keep things going instead of just expansion drought, but then the big narrative change coming up, the Witch Queen. Savathun, sister of Oryx, hive god of deceit and lies. It was time for us to meet her head on in battle. The seeds of her corruption have been planted. The prior seasons have been building up towards it. Marasov's involvement, Saint 14 is back. Things are changing, and now there is a throne world to be raided. How did it fare? Oh, a lot of people say it's about on par with Taken King and Forsaken. And if you say that, you have nostalgia goggles fused to your fucking head. Taken King and Forsaken are not bad expansions, neither of them, but they saved their respective games. They brought the games back from the brink of difficulties, collapse issues, all these kinds of things. It saved their games. This is not trudging Destiny up from the deep. This is elevating it to its zenith. The Witch Queen came out when Destiny was already at its height. Beyond Light was really good, and all this seasonal content was incredible. We had each of the quarters, Hunt, Chosen, Splicer, and Lost, and each of them were building up that narrative more and more, and Season of the Lost was incredible. So many good activities, so much narrative involvement. We were already basically in the height of Destiny with Season of the Lost, and all the Witch Queen did was grab it and shove it even higher. This is the best expansion Destiny has ever had, period. It is a new personal high for quality and care and gameplay and narrative and everything. It is the top Destiny has ever been, and I'm a little scared it might not be able to maintain that, but right now, Witch Queen is the best, and it's not even a question. It's not even close. After doing everything, the campaign, some of the quests, the activities, Wellspring, the Vox Obscura, all the new stuff, after doing all of that, if the raid sucked balls, it would have still been the best expansion. And the raid didn't suck balls. We've gone to the point where 90% of the complaints about Destiny are either outdated or just memes or done by people who don't fucking play Destiny. Issues the game has had previously have been wiped away either by updates or just slow adjustments to the game, which I guess means updates, but you know, more like creative decisions, whatever. There will always be valid criticisms. That's why I said 90%, not 100%. But at the moment, it feels like the amount of criticisms are so low on the totem pole compared to everything great going on with this experience now. Destiny is fucking incredible right now, and I would recommend it to almost anyone, especially with the release of the Witch Queen. So let's talk about the campaign.
Things couldn't get much worse. The universe just loves proving me wrong, doesn't it?
You load into the game, you load into the campaign, and you have two options, normal and legendary mode. Now, this is the first time they've done this. Normal mode puts you into the regular Destiny campaign, which is generally a breeze. It's super simple. You just kind of schmoove your way through it, and it's nice and relaxing for the narrative only. It's kind of like an easy mode, which has always been what it's been. Legendary changes everything. Your light level is locked at a certain amount beneath the enemies, which means they do more damage and you do less. There are often more enemies. There are modifiers. There are a lot higher damage with certain score and crossbow characters per chance. And overall, the legendary mode is just harder in almost every way. And apparently even harder if you're playing with a group because you have the light is fading part. But by doing the legendary campaign, you got double loot. And by the time you finished it, you got a whole bunch of gear that was way higher in level, preparing you for the raid sooner, which was a fantastic decision. I played the entire campaign on Legendary, and I would recommend it to everybody. Now, I did it solo. It's no walk in the park, don't get me wrong. It definitely tested me throughout the entire campaign. I struggled a bit, but overall, I wasn't like tearing my hair out with some of the missions, except for a couple boss fights. Those boss fights being the fucking Scorn dude with the giant sensor from like the Presage mission, the Scorn sniper asshole as well, and the final boss fight, which I guess spoiler, but not really like it really matters, is indeed Savathun. And god damn was she fucking hard. But those insane fights, especially the one with Savathun, need to feel better. Because for the longest time, you've had this grand story about your guardian, and all the things it's doing with light and dark, and dealing with the multiple kinds of enemies, the Hive, the Fallen Cabal, etc., and all of these just intriguing, interesting campaigns that you always would then walk up with a Gallarhorn or something of the nature and one shot whatever you were fighting. The game didn't have a great narrative to difficulty combo. These giant gods. Savathun is a Hive god. And considering if we were fighting her like we were fighting Oryx way back when, we'd just be killing her with a little dinky pistol. But for me, I died to Savathun a lot. She fucked me in the ass easily. Over and over and over again. It took me a while, and she felt like I was actually fighting a hive god. A struggle, light or heavy, is appreciated to sell these narrative moments more. But it's not just that. This campaign may have been better with the legendary mode, and the narrative was better, but it's also because this was a campaign mode. For the longest time, parts of the Destiny campaigns would actually have certain missions that would be go do bounties, go do patrols in public events, go do this strike or this lost sector, basically trying to introduce you to the new world, whether that's the Tangled Shore or Europa, etc. It was always lots of filler content, and that's been basically all cut out. The entire campaign is a campaign from start to finish, with the exception of one, and that's doing the light blade strike, which is the best strike they added, so I'm okay with that. Each mission is truly a mission with a narrative and narrative consequences, and often cutscenes that accompany it. Good cutscenes too. Like the overall story, right? Savathun has the light. She has our power, void, arc, solar. She has the strength. She's giving it to all of her hive guardians. And with that, a new location's been added. Game mechanics have been changed. Void 3.0, new enemies have been added. There's all of this new stuff coming in, and it's a true and honest to God threat. And it's finally a campaign that feels like it. But even so, you know, that's the surface level of this whole story. The story has so many more deeper layers to it, and twists and turns and things to think about. And finally, the affirmation of something I've been saying since like D1. The Traveler is not our friend. It's a big fuck off ball looking out for itself. And a phenomenal ass cutscene shows this.
Wouldn't it be clever of you if after everything, you simply let me die? If there is an answer, I don't hear it.
Doesn't seem like there's as many pre-rendered, like really high quality cutscenes like there are in Forsaken. Like the one where you saw Ikora with the worm and the hive worms and stuff, like those really high quality cutscenes. Seem to be not as many of those in this one as Forsaken, but it still looked really darn good, so I can't really complain. The cutscenes we did get are pretty outstanding quality. Savathun is voice acted just perfectly. She's so good. I love a lot of the other major, or not really major, but side characters. Like the Witness sounds great, in particular that cutscene with the worms and all that, and drowning in the deep and Cataclysm and all that. It's the voice acting is pretty solid. All the major cutscenes sound great and have a lot of effort put into them. Though one gripe, you have that cutscene where Ikora is revealing the whole worms and the Witness, and you're shown that Savathun and the Hive were lied to by the Witness, instead of the Traveler and all that stuff, to go to the darkness. And then once you realize that, Ikora is like, well,
they were tricked. The Hive were lied to.
And then right after she says that, you walk to her, and then
So the Hive god of lies was lied to. This changes everything.
I get it, Bungie. Half your Hunter players have brain damage from hitting their heads on the ceiling with stompies one too many times. And I mean, I'm a Titan player. I get it. But like, come on. A little fucking faith, please. Anyway, this all culminates into the final mission, which is a banger. It is super long, maybe even too long, but I take too long over too short any day of the week. Just the area, the visuals of it, the big bell, like the big hive bowl area that you're in, and then the Savathun boss fight and the realizations and the voice acting with it, and our ghosts getting all high and mighty. It's so phenomenal. It's gorgeous looking, it's well done, it's well paced. It is a incredible conclusion to this campaign. And despite the fact that the conclusion does feel a little open-ended in many ways, actually, particularly the fact that Savathun's ghost Amaru is still alive, and that is a very possible reason for her to come back later on. Then the witness reveal, that Megamind looking ass. Like, there's a lot leading up after that, but it still feels like closure. It still feels like we accomplished something huge, and it feels satisfying. I really got to shout out the VA for Savathun. She's so goddamn good in this one.
The game is yours to play now. Yours to win or lose.
You might not think that clip is particularly like amazing in delivery, like better than other stuff, but I don't know, there's just something about it, like the poisonous delivery, you know, the god of lies, and the way she kind of rolls it out. It's like, she's great. Make her, like, put her everywhere. Give her more roles. Make her our ghost. Make her the Drifter. Make her Osiris. She already was. But with the campaign coming to the end, the reveal of the witness, it lacked that other part that Destiny campaigns used to have, which is there's the lost sectors and bounties and blah, 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 blah. But they decided to instead add that to the exotic quest of Queens and Worms. The Queens and Worms quest is a really great idea, and I hope they do this in every other expansion. Basically, all of the things you need to do, all of the content you will be consuming for the next however long is stuck in this quest line. You do the strikes, you do some lost sectors, I think you do patrols, maybe public events, I forget exactly everything, but the Wellspring, you do like all the major things you will be doing in Savathun's throne world from there on out, as well as having some genuinely funny dialogue with the worm. I am shocked how much I like the worm. He's so evil, but he's so cute. And then we turned him into a gun. Mind you, the worm gun. Oh, this is a perfect choice. Please do this every time afterwards. Have a long campaign of great, well-paced missions, and then you want to show us the area, show us off the new destination, all that kind of stuff. Throw it in the exotic quest afterwards. It's a perfect idea. It makes doing the quest nice and smooth and familiarizes new players. It is A+ idea. In particular, I kind of like the Altar of Reflection stuff, not because of the actual combat and whatever, but the lore bits are good. I like the 2 truths, 2 lies game she likes to play, which is funny because, you know, there's nothing saying that she's not lying about that fact that there's 2 truths and 2 lies, so the game is moot, but it's interesting enough, you know, I'm curious. Speaking of lies, let me tell you a lie. Void 3.0 is just as bad as Stasis in PvP. No, incorrect, disagree, malarkey, wrong. Void 3.0, the new edition of Void that allows you to really customize your character's actual abilities more, the grenades, the aspects, all that stuff, the way you use your super. It's a great hit. I love it. It's really interesting. It's fun. It adds a lot more depth to someone that I really always liked. I was always a Void fan, and you know, I love Defensive Strike, and I was always a Ward of Dawn player, especially in D1. And so this in its own right is really fun for one, but man, like comparing this to Stasis though, like it's good, you know, like a lot of Titans have overshields and Hunters are invisible and all this stuff, like yeah, but comparing this to Stasis is literally 1984. Void 3.0 is just fun. The build crafting, the ideas you can make, the way they synergize with one another, the way that Stasis has been for the longest time, but I just never really got interested in Stasis. I found Stasis to be a little boring, but Void 3.0 feels just really fun, and especially when you're running Titan where everything explodes and you've got a funnel weapon. It's a fun subclass change, and I'm excited to see the difference it'll make with things like Arc and also Solar later on, because right now Arc is basically all I use if I want to Thunder Crash something with Cyrus, and Solar, oh, I guess like Syntheseps builds, not much. What other stuff has been added? Weapon crafting. That's interesting. I like the concept. It needs some work though. It is a fat load of costs for it. And I kind of get it to an extent, and some of the perks, like the enhanced perks, seem kind of worthless, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Like they should only really offer a 5 to 10% increase in use, because I mean, how much bloat do you want? We're killing everything in half a second anyway. You want to kill things in less than half a second now? Like, make it even crazier? I get it for the material cost and that kind of stuff, but I don't know. But besides that, I like the weapon crafting a lot. It allows me to use weapons I normally wouldn't, so I can get the deep sight resonance from them, and messing around with patterns and stuff gives me different exciting concepts, especially with the idea that some exotics might actually get their catalyst via the weapon crafting system later, like the Osteostriga does. But certain things like making a good pulse or a scout, or being able to craft especially raid weapons. I mean, I'm a PvE player more than I'm a PvP player, so being able to perfectly craft that subsistence frenzy roll that I want Excuse you. Being able to craft the role I want is really nice, especially when you have upgraded subsistence and such. But I will admit the system does need a little bit of work. I'm just not smart enough to think of any decisions. I don't know. Glaives though. Glaives. When it comes to weaponry, in the olden days, I like my good long two-handed thing, right? Give me a halberd or a poleaxe, glaive, naginata, get any of those long ones. I mean, I played Lawbringer in fucking For Honor, like, you know, it should make plenty of sense. I like these kinds of things. So the idea that I've got a Destiny medieval magic glaive that also is a gun and a shield, really cool. Now, I'm not disappointed with the glaive, but it definitely feels on the weak side. I like using it quite a lot, actually. I find it to be a really fun weapon to run around with, just having the glaive. But as a weapon, it definitely feels like they were maybe a little scared with what it could do, and so they basically made it not work with anything. The gun is fun, but a little low on damage. The shield is actually pretty good, but I don't know, getting behind cover is not the hardest thing in the world to do. And the melee basically operates as an unempowered melee, which means its synergy with a crap load of stuff just isn't there. It needs some better synergy with exotic armor and perks and the like. It really needs more options for this kind of build craft, because at the moment it feels really weak with the exception of suppressing glaive, but that's just a seasonal artifact mod, so it doesn't really count. Also, maybe some more animations on the swing. It's just like the same 1 2 3 1 2 3. It gets a little bit boring sometimes. Overall, I mean, I like the glaive. I like it a lot, but it's definitely weak, and I think it could use some ups. I'm actually really starting to realize how much content is in this expansion. We haven't even talked about the Throne World yet. Or Season of the Risen. Season of the Risen.
Rise, my glorious creation. Rise.
So as I mentioned before, Destiny is in like a quarterly season thing now. And in these seasons, it's where the new content comes in, the new gameplay loop arrives, new armor, new like battle pass kind of thing. So therefore new cosmetics, new weapons, all these things arrive in this seasonal content, along with some kind of seasonal artifact mod to go along with it. And that actually helps carry the narrative a bit more from expansion to expansion. If you played all of Beyond Light and then went straight to Witch Queen, you'd probably be pretty confused. But Beyond Light into Hunt, Chosen, Splicer, and Lost, it makes a million more sense. It's absolutely a nice, slow build up for the next expansion, and that's what I'm expecting to happen come this one. Season of the Risen is season 16, and it entirely involves us working with Keitel, the Empress of the Cabal, in order to use her scions to mind control, fuck, I don't know, a bunch of Hive in order for us to learn their plans and the like. It's a little dubious, I won't lie. Stealing Hive and then forcefully entering their minds to learn their secrets as prisoners is kind of fucky. And other people seem to agree as well. His name is Crow. We'll talk about that in a moment. But despite it all, you know, the Hive are pretty awful people. So that's the goal of this season. And so far, it's pretty great. Oh, the gear isn't really my thing, but if you like Cabal stuff, you're gonna love it. I love the little synaptic spear thing. I still love fighting Lucent Hive, the Lucent Brood. They're really fun, and they add a great new dynamic and challenge, having to grab that ghost and crush it. Way more fun than Champions will ever be, because Champions suck. They just suck. But the competency of storytelling in Season of the Risen is shockingly high. This one is having a lot more Crow and Saladin going on. Crow right now isn't liking what's happening. It's like, oh my god, we're literally mind fucking these Hive. Like, we are stealing them as prisoners and forcefully entering their brains to steal their secrets. Like, this is a little wrong. And Saladin is their big gruff man, like, there's horrors in war, and war has horrors, and this is what we have to do because Hive are shit lords and all this stuff. And Saladin's finally getting some development and an arc, which is great, because for the longest time I only knew him as guy who voices Iron Banner, and besides that he was always really fucking boring. And Crow, you are a naive son of a bitch, Crow. You are a naive SOB. However, I get it. Everything he does, I'm like, I disagree with, but I get it, which is always the important part when it comes to storytelling, you know? It's not about whether you agree with the person who does the thing that they do. You just gotta believe that they would do it. You know, I don't particularly agree with the excessive mass murder committed by Joel from The Last of Us at the end of the first game and lying to Ellie, but I would believe he would do it. The only thing these seasons are really missing is pre-rendered cutscenes. There's a couple cutscenes here and there, and they have that nice one where it's like a oil painting or whatever that is, like the ink blots and the white and the black, the grayscale thing. But besides that, it could use a couple more pre-rendered cinematics, but there's still enough here at the moment, and I like where they're going for it. And granted, it's not over yet. We're only like halfway through, so there's still more time to see the rest of the season. But overall, like, these are good. These are so good. The narrative being placed in front of you, despite the fact that you have to kind of sit there in first person and listen to a lot of it, is a little bit weak, but I am thoroughly invested. It's like a TV show because every week the narrative keeps going. Every reset, it keeps going more and more and more. And then you have a little bit of downtime to earn what you need before the next season. It's so smart. This is the season that comes out with the expansion, like Season of the Hunt. These are normally the weak ones. What's next season gonna be? Like, holy shit. Oh my God. Speaking of holy shit, let's talk about that raid.
Holy fuck. Gamers, do I have news for you?
One of the best experience Destiny has to offer is its raid. It is some of the most challenging, some of the most fun, most exciting, the most Destiny thing out there. It's an MMO light. So the raid is, of course, one of the most important things of the expansion. If you've never done a Destiny raid before, it's generally a very long mission, taking between an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on team competency, and normally spans multiple different kinds of encounters and bosses to go along with it, with specific mechanics in each encounter. After each encounter, there's a bit of loot that drops for you, generally having armor or weapons that you can only get from the raid, and normally there's an exotic, a fancy-pantsy, raid-only, low-chance drop at the end that you can also get, unless you're Garden of Salvation. Suck my dick. The things that set Destiny raids apart from other MMO experiences is generally the fact that Destiny raids are much shorter, but also have a much lower margin of error. In a big MMO, like if I'm thinking of, let's say, WoW, you know, back in the day, Lich King, Ice Crown Citadel, that's when I remember it. The groups were obviously very, very large, but also there were, what was it, like 15 encounters or something like that? There's a ton of bosses. Many of them were optional though, and getting through the entire raid took a very, very long time. But at the same time, you had a lot more margin of error. It really is margin of error. I can't think of a better term for it. People could fuck up and die a lot more often than in a Destiny raid. Sometimes just 1 to 2 fuck ups or 1 to 2 deaths is the end of that encounter and you need to wipe immediately. But naturally, it's also making all the encounters way faster. Most encounters don't take longer than maybe 10 minutes each. This depends on how many times you fail and have to restart it. Depending on how good you are, it can be even faster. Like Deepstone Crypt with a really good team, you can do in sub an hour. But, you know, Last Wish with a team still learning it could be 3, 4, 5 hours maybe. Now, those two are different in length, of course, and depending on how you're doing Riven can definitely take a lot longer. But regardless, this is not like a 10-hour long real MMO raid. Though the encounters are pretty tight. So example, Atrix 1, Deepstone Crypt. You have to have someone with a scanner buff to call out the correct Atrix of all the clones that's praising the sun and gonna kill you all. If someone hits the wrong one, you all wipe and die. Riven in Last Wish, you shoot the wrong eye, you all wipe and die. You don't pick up a hairball fast enough on the Garden of Salvation opening, you all wipe and die. There are a lot of very quick and twitch options that everyone needs to do, and everyone needs to be on the same page. But if you do it fast enough and well enough, like I said, these raids take very short periods of time. You could do every single raid in a night if you are competent enough as a team. So for the newest raid, this is the Vow of the Disciple. You are heading to a giant darkness pyramid that has a disciple of the witness, Rulk. Rulk is a bad man doing bad things and he must be stopped. And it's the first time we're doing a major raid and fighting a faction that is not really what we've seen before. Giant pyramid darkness ship. Rulk is he's an interesting looking man to say the least. And like with most raids, the mechanics all kind of go on top of each other as they go on. So in Vow of the Disciple, you start off with a little bit of a scorn fighting section in which you need to figure out the weight of darkness, where if you're out for too far, then you will be killed. So like, okay, now you know that. You know you have to go get these weird little crystal-y things to bring back to this cart of some kind to keep it going. So now you know about the enlightenment buffs you can get, and now you know about the weight of darkness as you're moving through the first encounter. Encounter 2 is the exhibition. If I'm wrong, you can laugh at me. This is a puzzle coordination memorization combo. There are a ton of symbols, giant obelisks need to be protected. You split yourself up into various groups, and this is where you learn all of the symbols. After that, you have the caretaker. You're adding the symbols plus the thing you learned in the beginning to grab the little stuff together. Caretaker boss. That's where we tapped out on World's First. We just didn't have the damage for that SOB. But then you've got the seizure-inducing gauntlet after that, which is a whole thing. A little bit of platforming after that. And then finally, you've got Rook, Disciple of the Witness. And then all the things you learned from before are added and used right there and then for him. And that's your raid. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with Vow Disciple, but not overall from like the raid itself. It's not my favorite raid. I wouldn't call it better than Last Wish. Kind of on par with it with Deepstone overall, but it's the fact that this raid was so different. It really shows that Bungie is ready to push itself outside the box on the mechanics of the game. Like for the longest time, the issues that I saw with raids was the reliance on things like Well of Radiance, Weapons of Light, and various things of that nature. And a lot of the bosses were just giant immobile crit spots for the most of it. As much as I love Last Wish, Kali, Morgeth, and Riven are all stand in a spot with the Well of Radiance, basically. Deepstone Crypt has a little bit more intrigue, but you're still Well of Radiancing in Crypt Security as well as the Taniks fight. Deepstone Shota had the idea to make some different encounters, mainly with the Atrix 1 fight and a short damage encounter, and the Descent fight, which I find is fun because it's just total chaos. Vow the Disciple has almost no sections where you're really just sitting there with a well or fighting something randomly immobile. Everything is super different. The pillar and puzzle encounter has roamers moving around the map and people defending. The defenders could use a well, sure, but there's no major boss. The caretaker forces you to go from platform to platform to platform in order to do your damage. So if you do want to use Weapons of Light or a well, you have to stagger it, and at least it takes a little bit of skill to do so. Not a lot, but it forces you to do it. The third fight is you can't stop moving. You're literally timed in this horrifying area with a bunch of relics and you're running through the place. It's just super chaos. It's horrifyingly stressful, but I kind of like it for that. And Rook fights back. Rook is a sassy looking, the way he walks with his goddamn hand, his big ass feet, and he's walking around smacking you. And then when it's damage time and DPS time, he actually tries to fuck you up. He pulls out his sword and says, "Come at me, fucker," and he runs at you, blasts these giant 4 lasers all over the arena. You have to be able to dodge and move, because if you don't, then, well, he kills you. It's a boss that you actually have to fight. So standing in a well isn't an option. Standing in a bubble really isn't an option. Like, you've got to go out there and deal with him in your own way. You all have to be your own kind of skill as you're moving around. It's so much fun, and it's so out of the box, and it shows that Bungie is not out of ideas for these raids, because this is truly one of the more fun raids because it's so different. And so at the end of this, right, you've got the best campaign in Destiny history, the best environment in Destiny history. Like, I am such a sucker for magenta. I love magenta. I love statues, and I absolutely fucking love flowers. I also love the combination of some kind of steel, like gold or iron, mixed with something white colored and the magenta color. Like, there's just Savathun's Throne World was made for me, god damn it. This is the most gorgeous place I've been to in a video game in a long time. And then I go play Elden Ring and I'm going to fucking Caelin. I don't want to go to fucking Caelin. I want to go to Savathun's Throne World because it's so pretty. The Queen's Bailey, that area in the throne with the Queen's, but oh my god, it's so pretty. Oh my god, it's like I'm running through an area full of just death and horror, but at the same time, it's death and horror with like a beckoning hand. It's so fucking good. Wellspring Activity, Vox Obscura, Altar of this and that, new raid, the changes to Gambit are pretty great also. I mean, Gambit has its problems, but it's still better. The Season of the Risen, like, this is the best time. This is the best timeline. Destiny 2, the Witch Queen, is the best timeline to be in. Almost all the complaints I can think of right now are just minor minutia complaints here and there, or stuff done by people with like 40,000 hours in Witch Queen already, because that's all they do is Destiny. And I guess you can talk about the whole price point and the sunsetting thing, because that's its own deal, which I'm mixed on. On one hand, I get so much content for the cost that I just don't care at all because I get so much fucking content. On the other hand, the vaulting of like Tangled Shore and stuff, they say it's for removal of dev time because new stuff gets added to the game and that stuff might break old stuff. So instead of having to spend dev time to fix old stuff gets cycled out and possibly brought back in. And also file size. I don't like it, but I don't have a solution because I'm not a game dev. So, and honestly, maybe hot take here, but if removing that stuff saves dev time to give us what we got now, get rid of it. I don't give a shit. If that's what I need to sacrifice in order to get this experience right here and right now, fine. This is insane and I adore it. And that is it for me in terms of sucking Bungie's dick the entire video. I really like Destiny right now. It is a blast. The only reason I'm not on it every day is because Elden Ring. So yeah, give it a shot. Jump on it if you want to. It's free to play. It's not really free to play. It's more like free to try it out maybe a little bit, see if you enjoyed it. If you do, maybe you can put some money on it, you know. And we finally have some questions to answer. Holy shit, we have real things. Bricky, you watched Encanto and mentioned that you really liked it. Any specific thoughts and that really stuck out? I just really like the color. I thought the acting and voice acting was really good, and some of the songs were, especially like I think the Bruno one and the two Caterpillar one at the end really got to me, especially like one at the end. Oh my god, that one hit the feels hard. But just the color, the environment, I almost wish it was like 20 minutes longer because some things felt a little bit kind of brought up and dropped. It needs some more development, but I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It just, I don't know, it's nice, warm and fuzzy. Not the greatest movie I've seen, but it was good. One of my go-to comfort foods, 10-piece Wingstop. 5 all boneless. 5 of it being like garlic parmesan or lemon pepper, the other 5 being like spicy Korean, honey barbecue, maybe mango habanero if I'm feeling particularly spicy. Have you considered cum? All right, I had to sneak one of these fucking ones in here. All right, I'm out of here. I'm gone.
Come on. Obviously, you're a skater.